We can't fix Congress, but we can fix conversations. We can't end every injustice, but we can start living like justice matters again. So, when the next viral clip hits your feed, am I adding light or just heat? When you hear about families losing benefits or another tragedy in the news, don't just scroll past it. Stop, pray, share, help. Because empathy isn't weakness. Welcome back to the Green Room, where we keep it real, raw. Of course, we are rooted in truth here. So today, it's not going to just be another episode. This one is going to definitely be different. It's involving things that are going on in today's world that I feel like it's time that we give some attention, but we're going to give it attention in a way that I think everyone needs to hear. And honestly, it's going to be about the world we're living in right now and how broken it feels. I mean, we've seen another week full of division, not just in politics, but in people. Stephen A. Smith, past couple weeks, has been catching some heat over Representative Jasmine Crockett. Twitter, or X as we call it, exploded on him. Everyone got an opinion, a clip, a take. Meanwhile, the government's at another standoff. We know what we're talking about since this month started: SNAP benefits being cut or delayed again. And real families are caught in the middle of it. And then the verdict just dropped in Illinois, where a sheriff, if you're familiar with the case, was found guilty in the killing of Sonia Massey. And if you're not familiar with this case, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis. It deals with a Black woman who called the police for help. And instead of getting that help, she lost her life. Now, it's a lot to take in, but I think all of these stories are connected. Meanwhile, we keep arguing about the problems, we're forgetting to care about the people living through them. So I titled this episode, The Great Divide, When the Mic Stops Feeding Us. So let's talk about how we got here and overall how we can start healing. Now, the backlash. Let's start with Stephen A. Smith. He's one of the biggest voices in sports and media. Recently, he commented on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's choice of words, calling it street verbiage. The internet did what the internet does. Exploded. Some said he was right for holding leaders to the standard. Others said he was tone policing a Black woman. Of course, he apologized, but by that point, the outrage had already taken off. But here's what stood out to me. We live in a time where tone matters more than truth. You can say something accurate in the wrong way and lose everyone. Or you can say something beautifully false and it goes viral. And that's not just about language. It's about trust. People aren't reacting to the words, they're reacting to the wounds. When Stephen A. Smith said street verbiage, some folks didn't just hear him. They heard every moment they were told they weren't professional enough, or they weren't educated enough, or they aren't respectable enough. That's the world we live in now. Every conversation is going to hit a nerve. Every disagreement is going to feel like disrespect. And when we can't listen without defending, we stop learning altogether. But just remember this one thing: while the internet argues about how things was said, we miss what's actually happening around us. The real breakdown. Because while that story trended, another one went silent. So let's go to that breakdown. Let's talk about what happens when the system stops feeding us. While timelines are filled with debate about Stephen A., families across this country right now are dealing with something far more serious: the SNAP crisis. SNAP, if anyone doesn't know, is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's the thing keeping millions of Americans from going hungry. But this year, funding fights and budget gridlocks have left people waiting for weeks for benefits or watching their food budget drop just overnight. And what the wild thing is, this isn't headline news. We talk for hours about celebrity drama, but when the government fails the people who depend on it the most, we just scroll right past it. It's not just a policy issue, y'all. It's a mirror. This mirror is really showing us what we really value. We say freedom, but we're ignoring fairness. We say responsibility, but we're skipping accountability. We say family values, but forget about the families who have none of the value left. And this is where faith hits reality. Because Jesus said, I was hungry and you gave me food. That wasn't political. That was personal. Maybe the real divide in America isn't left versus right. Maybe it's compassion versus convenience. Because we're not just divided politically, y'all. We're divided emotionally. We want it to be right more than we want to be righteous. But then there comes a moment that forces us to look into a mirror, to realize that division, it doesn't just starve the system, it destroys lives. But as we just talked about the breakdown, let's talk about this verdict. Let's talk about the cost of division. Last week, we saw Illinois made headlines when the sheriff involved in the killing of Sonia Massey was found guilty. Sonia was a 36-year-old woman who called 911 because she was afraid. She did what we're all told to do when we need help. She called the people who were supposed to help us. And that's the police. And instead of protection, she gets a bullet. Now, that verdict did bring some relief, but it still brought pain to many. Because justice doesn't bring her back. It doesn't erase the fear so many people feel that in communities where trust has been broken repeatedly. And here's the heartbreaking truth in the matter. That too is a part of the divide. Because the same division that fuels online outrage also feeds institutional violence. So when we stop seeing each other as people and start seeing each other as problems, someone always pays the price. Sonia's story isn't just about race or policing. It's about empathy. It's about what happens when a society stops feeling for the people that it's supposed to serve. We can't keep calling for law and order without also demanding love and justice. Because one without the other will always leave someone dead, unheard, or unseen. And when I look at stories like Sonia's, I think this is why the Green Room exists. Because we've got to talk about what's real. We've got to bring the humanity back in the headlines. Because until compassion outweighs convenience and understanding outweighs outrage, the cycle won't stop. Now, what do we do? This is what I'm going to title The Bridge. As I just asked, where do we go from here? Simple answer, we start small. We start by listening longer and judging slower. We can't fix Congress, but we can fix conversations. We can't end every injustice, but we can start living like justice matters again. So, when the next viral clip hits your feed, ask yourself, am I adding light or just heat? When you hear about families losing benefits or another tragedy in the news, don't just scroll past it. Stop, pray, share, help. Because empathy isn't weakness, it's strength. The Green Room has always been about truth told in love. And that's what the world's starving from. Not more noise, not more sides. We need more heart. So, as we close this episode, I want to leave you with this. Division doesn't start in Washington. It starts in us. It's in how we speak, it's in how we listen, and how we love. Whether it's SNAP benefits, a public controversy, or a courtroom verdict, the issue is still the same. We need to start caring again, because unity doesn't begin with a vote or a post. It begins with compassion. Now, as I always say, if this episode spoke to you, Share with someone who's also tired with the noise, but still believes in healing. And tell me what you think. Do we care more about being right or doing right? So, you can always find me here in the comments on YouTube or Spotify. But until next time, stay real, stay grounded, and remember, growth begins in the green room. Peace.